Well, hello there, and welcome to the Weekend Update. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. It's the weekend. It's when they sit there and recycle all their hate, or the repeat hate all weekend long. Nothing but hate all the time. The Democrat Party's in trouble.
Yeah, they really are. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw the interview. You know, Jake Tapper, who, by the way, is not a big fan of President Trump, he had a reporter from The Hill, Amy Parnas. She's somebody who's really close to the Democratic Party. Not a fan of President Trump.
She didn't have good things to say. I know that.
No, she was talking about where they were right after the election, and if they've gotten better since then, right? And she's of the opinion that it's actually getting worse by the day. Here's what she said.
Of the book, you frame the 2024 election this way for Democrats. You say, quote, Democrats tried to break Donald Trump. Instead, they shattered again. They said they were saving the country, the presidency, and the Congress from Trump and his MAGA movement. They saved nothing, not even themselves. Democrats lost everything, including their friendships. Based on your interviews with top Democrats then and now, is the party still in the shambles it was November, December of last year?
It's honestly even worse right now, Jake, and I think they're scrambling to find out who their leader is, but they're also in the midst of an identity crisis. They don't know who they are right now. They don't know what their message is. And, you know, I've said this repeatedly over the last couple days, but I think what they need to do, and what I think a lot of strategists are telling me, is that they need to almost burn the house down, but not only burn the house down, accept some accountability and say, this is what went wrong. This is what we need to do now. And, you know, responsibility for President Biden and maybe not getting him out sooner. And, you know, they really need to have a little bit of introspection here.
And John,
you know, Bill, the thing about this is as long as they have the same people driving the Democratic bus, you know, the people who are driving it just before the election, they're still driving it now. They're going to get the same results. They're not going to change their image as long as the same group of people who were the head of the party when they collapsed are still at the controls.
Yeah, but you know what? Their choice of possible leaders are not good either, because now in a hypothetical matchup between AOC and Schumer, AOC wins it hands down. I mean, are they going to these? Are they going socialistic, communist?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You know, I mean, have they lost touch with the American people? Do they even care? Do they have a pulse on what's going on? I mean, obviously, you know, going back to the story we just did there,
right?
Kamala had no clue. As a matter of fact, there's a book out now that she was shocked by the election results that she lost. She was drunk most of the time and, bought into the hype that they were delivering, which was all BS.
She spoke at some meeting somewhere, some convention somewhere, and that's exactly what she said. She said, well, don't blame me for what you have now. And I'm thinking, my God, are you paying attention? What we have now is the cleaning up of your mess, your administration's mess. And by the way, I love how they try to distance themselves from the previous administration. She was number 2 in that administration. She was
literally
Joe Biden's J.D. Vance, you know?
Yeah.
And so, Bill, the Democrats, you know, instead of sitting down and saying, okay, we've got to get some new faces out there. We've got 3.5 years. We've got to take the old faces and either retire them or get them out of take them away from cameras and microphones, because we've got to create a new Democratic Party. Instead of doing that, they're doubling down. This is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. His name is Ken.
This would be great.
Ken Martin. He announced yesterday that their answer to this administration is to start what they call a people's cabinet. Other people will call it a shadow government, which is, by the way, illegal. Yeah. Here's what he said.
Hey, it's Ken Martin. I want to tell you about the People's Cabinet that the DNC is launching today. I have been traveling across the country nonstop since I started this job, and what I hear over and over is this. Americans want us to fight back against Trump's lies and offer a better alternative. Trump has stacked his cabinet with out-of-touch billionaires who are causing chaos and hurting working people. That's why we are launching the People's Cabinet. It will be made up of experts, leaders, and everyday Americans who will share reliable and accurate information that you can use to fight back. Stay tuned for more.
You know, Ken, you should also get a people's camera crew, because you go out on the sidewalk and you stand there and you talk into your cell phone and you think the audio is good enough. These people, they're lazy. You know, I mean, if you're going to do stuff like that, get a mic yourself properly so you're on mic. You're not screaming into from across the street like that audio was. And by the way, Bill, you said something before the show started about tariffs and about Gavin Newsom, which actually relates to this. What did you tell me before?
Hang on, let me grab my notes because I had printed out something on that. But essentially, what Gavin has decided to do is he's going to be the great savior of the world, and his answer to the tariffs are California. He will negotiate on the behalf of California their own set of tariffs. Screw the U.S. They're going to do their own tariffs because you see they got ports there. And
unbelievable.
I'm like going, think about this now. California is $38 billion in debt, more debt than they have money. This guy is the biggest idiot out there. He's a loser. His state, virtually burnt down, under his watch. And he's going to go, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do my own negotiations.
Bill, I don't think he can do it. I don't think he can represent himself. It's not he's not an independent nation.
No, he can't do it. It's illegal for him to do. But, there are going to be a lot of, he's undermining the federal power.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have it.
Is that the plan of the DNC right now? We just talked about this People's Cabinet. Now we're talking about Newsom trying to create his own tariffs. Are they? And today, by the way, is a national day of protest from the left. They're going to have demonstrations around the country. I hate to say this, but I anticipate that there will be problems today.
Well,
go ahead.
The Democrats have got it in their mind that they are going to, boo Trump, he bad man, boo. And they're sitting there and they want to, upend everything that he does. Take the tariffs. And they're saying, oh, it's such a bad thing. But the simple fact is we've had tariffs before, and it's not a bad thing. But what they want to do, what was it, Pelosi and Bernie Sanders?
Yeah.
Just a few years ago, they were saying how the middle class people, and jobs going overseas, they're being left out, and these tariffs, without tariffs, we don't have a country, and I'm sitting there going, and now they're sitting there, saying, well, we don't want tariffs. And they're all for the export of the jobs. Before, they were for it. They were for the middle class. What is it, 80 or 90% of America, the backbone of America, is the working man, the farmer, the guys out there doing the 9-to-5s, and the ladies out there doing the 9-to-5s, and whatever it is you do. But those are going away. We've shipped everything, man. We don't make things anymore.
Obama and Clinton also spoke up in favor of tariffs. And adjusting them to our benefit. That was in the past, mind you. Now they open our borders and they believe that everything that Trump does is bad. I don't think that the Democrats, as long as they keep doing what they're doing, I don't understand their philosophy. They're not going to get people to. They're not going to win over the majority of the people. I mean, the Republicans gave Trump a 77 million vote mandate. 77 million vote mandate. Well, that's all. How are the Democrats going to counter that with demonstrations that cause riots, fire bombings, intimidations? I saw a young lady. Maybe you saw the video. A young lady was interviewing a pro-life young lady was interviewing a pro-choice young lady, and they were both minorities, by the way. And the pro-life person was being intellectually challenging to the pro-choice person. So the pro-choice person out of nowhere cold-cocked her. I mean, punched her, laid her out, and then walked away from the camera. And the thing is, Bill, in our society today, people who do stuff like that, there are no consequences.
Right.
They just, they're allowed to go on with their lives. It's assault and battery where I come from. If I did it, even at my age, if I did it, they'd take me away in handcuffs.
Yeah. They'll take you away in handcuffs pretty soon just for being conservative. But,
That's true.
don't listen to the mainstream media. They're a part of it. They're the bugle cry and call to march for the Democratic left. And it's not that big. It's a very minuscule part. But, the Democrats have abandoned mainstream middle-class America. They used to be on our side, and that's where Trump comes in.
You're right. They were the party of the working man for much of my life. That's how they build themselves, and it's flip-flop.
Yeah, they got in bed with the social elite, the rich, the oligarchs of the world, and they've made a deal with them. And they might only be 5 or 10%, but that's who the Democrats they've snuggled up to and left the working man abandoned. Trump's tariffs. I mean, they're not a wrecking ball. They're a wake-up call. America First isn't just a slogan. It's a paycheck for the forgotten. And that's what it is. So you've got to, there's going to be some pain. I mean, that's just part of it because, to undo what has been done. But, if you want to let your jobs go away and, an insignificant amount of the population, 5, 10%, they just get wealthy beyond belief. And we are their servants. We're subservient to them, living with the scraps that they throw down our way. I mean, we're having to sell our souls just to live another day.
Do you ever think you would live in a society where you would be penalized for buying an environmentally conscious car, for example? I mean, the people, for the most part, who drive Teslas are Democrats. I want you to understand that much of the people who drive the Tesla today are people who are environmentally conscious. They're doing it for the environment. It's a great car, by the way. It is just filled with a lot of gadgets. Only problem I have it runs on electricity, and I don't like the batteries. But it is an amazing technology that you're driving. But it's been proven that most of the people who drive them are Democrats. So who's attacking who? You have the socialist Democrats attacking the Democrats. It doesn't make a lot of sense. They're penalizing their own kind. They're eating their own.
Yeah. Just a hunch. I haven't, it wasn't part of the show. I haven't, researched it. But, you got to think that these loosey lefty people out there doing what they're doing, deep inside, they just know instinctively, what I'm doing is not exactly right. I bet you if you go and talk to psychologists, they got more loosey lefty Democrats coming in to, get their heads screwed semi-straight than
what I've been told, and I think you'll see this today, is that a large majority of the people at these demonstrations today and the ones who have been at these Tesla dealerships are paid operatives. They're being funded. It goes back to 2020 when they had the riots in Minneapolis and Seattle and Portland. Yeah. People said, "Oh, those were like grassroots. They just popped out of nowhere." No, if you will remember correctly, some strange company was dropping off pallets of bricks, fresh bricks, so that they could they could throw them through the plate glass windows of the stores, and they would leave them right in the middle of a street. Here's your bricks. And they would also have bottled water for the people who were demonstrating. They would have freshly printed shirts, T-shirts that had their slogan on it. They would have signs that were printed, not handmade. All these things, they didn't just sprout up out of nowhere. These were real, organized, paid for demonstrations. And that's what I think you're going to see today, Bill, on this day of protest.
Well, that's called gig work. They got gig workers out there now. Yeah, and there are a lot of conservatives that do gig work, but I don't think any anybody that's conservative is going to look at self-respecting was the word. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. They're not going to sit there. They're going to look at this going, I need money, but I don't need it that bad.
Well, last Saturday when they had protests, Bill, the protests, it got to be they were at these dealerships and stuff, and everyone looked at their watch at 12 noon. Oh, it's 12 noon, and they all went home.
Yeah. Gigs up.
Yep.
Gigs up, got to go.
Yep.
And that means their heart's not in it.
The sad part about it is we're being played, folks. We're being played. And, they talk about the Trump administration. You're going to hear about how, Trump is just in there to help his millionaire cronies. No, he's in there to help us. These millionaire cronies don't need the work. They got the money already. They don't need his help. This is not an honest protest we're seeing nowadays. These, if anything is being organized by billionaires, it's the protests. A lot of these protesters in 2020 were being bussed and flown around the country to be at different demonstrations, and I would imagine some of them will be doing that today. They'll be bussed. Do you remember when they had they couldn't get large people to show up for Harris rallies, so they would bust them in. I remember seeing she had a rally in New Hampshire. They were afraid she wasn't going to have a decent crowd, so they bussed them in from Boston. They have video of it where they drove them up from Boston. You saw the buses on the highway headed north from Boston to drop off these, quote, grassroots fans of Kamala Harris. So we're in a situation right now, folks. I'm afraid that most of these demonstrations and riots are not honest, and they have a purpose. Everything here is connected, by the way. The shadow cabinet, the People's Cabinet, the Democrats are setting up, the announcement by Gavin Newsom that he's going to have his own tariffs, all this stuff, and these protests, everything is connected. This is, and I'm afraid that some of these things are going to spark violence at some point. Well,
let me tell you something. They're worried. They're saying, this is going to crash the job market and everything. The hype of the tariffs alone sends a signal, right? Now, there have been companies saying they're going to build here, jobs are coming here. Do you know what the jobs report was yesterday?
What was it?
Plus 228,000.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
That's a big number, and I dare you to find that in the Biden administration. The simple fact that numbers have been going up, and that's just based on, those are real, numbers, but that's it's based on what's to come.
Yeah.
And it's going to get better. Yeah, there's going to be some hurt. And to be honest with you, like China came in and goes, well, you sent a tariff on us, 34%. Okay, we're gonna jack ours up to 34%. Well, let's keep in mind something that the news doesn't tell you. That's 34% on top of the 68% they already have.
Oh yeah. And by the way, we do not export much of our stuff to China, so it's not going to have a terrible effect. We don't export a lot of our products to China. Everything is one way from China. It comes from there to here.
Yeah, but they're greedy bastards, and they've had us by the cojones forever. Loosen that grip. And, I can't sit there and say, don't buy things from China, because there's a lot of, good standing American businesses, and they can't help where their product comes from. And it's already been paid for, and it's in their stores,
Right.
If you like the product, you buy it there, that's fine. But when the store, I would tell the business owners, buy American, buy it, don't buy China. I mean, there are countries already coming to the table. I mean, places like Vietnam are going, hey, you know what? Let's work out a deal.
Hey,
we'll go to zero if you go to zero.
We have airplanes that are being manufactured in Seattle, and a lot of the parts come from China. Even when you think you're buying American, sometimes you'll find out that the internal parts are not from here.
Well, let me ask you a question. What airline's having all kinds of mechanical problems that's made in Seattle?
Dare I say Boeing?
Dare you say you're right? Yeah, I say you're right. Yeah, that's true. So do they have a lot of components that are, inferior? I know my son builds his own computers and stuff like that because, those kind of the kids that are into that, they just want to, they have it their own way. But one thing he doesn't do, and he's not a xenophobe or anything like that, but he doesn't buy Chinese power supplies because they may have a label on it and say, oh, this is a gold 80, but it's not. It's junk. And you put it on a test bench, put a load to it, and it blows up in flames. That's Chinese. They don't
have consistency in their manufacturing and they also don't have the same honesty standards that we have.
They lie about the quality of it, and then they slap it on there, and we go, oh, I got a deal. Yeah, you got a deal, all right. Hey, you got a great deal.
On another topic, we had a minor victory yesterday. I don't know if you saw this. The Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to terminate teaching grants that violate DEI policy in a 5-4 vote. But in that 5-4 vote, once again, we found out that Chief Justice John Roberts is a liberal. He's absolutely, positively a liberal. He may wear the label of a Republican. He may be said to be a moderate or a conservative. Nah, he's a liberal. He sided with, I think it was Sotomayor and Jackson and Kagan on that. So it was Roberts, Kagan, Jackson, and Sotomayor. This should have been a 9-0 vote because basing it on the Constitution, Trump had the right to do what he did. Okay. But the good news out of this decision, they say, is that it's the crack in the dam, so to speak. It's the first vote to go in favor of the administration. But because of this decision, it's like a benchmark for other decisions that are going to be coming up. Other challenges to these district judges who have been jumping out like whack-a-mole to try to stop Trump and the administration. And it looks like that in the not-too-distant future, we're going to start seeing a lot of reversals of their decisions. I saw there was the Babylon Bee. They had a meme that said Trump has resigned his position as president to take a higher position as a federal district justice. I thought that was kind of cute. But in our society right now, these justices, all of them, think that they have more power than the entire presidency. Let me give you an example. An Obama judge has ordered that that the prisoner that we sent off to El Salvador, the one from Maryland, that they said it was a mistake, and this Obama judge said, you've got until 11:59 on Monday to return that prisoner to the United States. I want that prisoner in my courtroom. So here's how it went. This was the court order as it was announced on Fox. Listen.
Right now, an Obama-appointed federal judge has just ordered the Trump administration to make immediate arrangements to return one of the more than 200 alleged gang members who were deported to El Salvador last month. The judge says that Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation was illegal.
Now, mind you, that he's a member of MS-13.
Yes.
He's a proven member of MS-13, which is not the Boy Scouts, folks. This is a serious. I think they're a listed terrorist organization.
Yeah, they do. It's a sport crime that they do with the killing and raping. So, and the fact that you see a bunch of gangbangers going down the road, and they've been known to rob, kill, rape, maim, whatever. That's all they do. And, all of a sudden somebody that's a member of that gang gets apprehended for whatever reason. Do you sit there going, well, we don't have anything on you. We got to let you. You don't do that. You may not have evidence of them being right at a certain place, but they're a member of that gang. They're in.
My question is, how the hell do you, how do you justify? Was the left and these judges popping their heads up when, Laken Riley was being murdered by an illegal thug in the United States. I mean, they were silent. And by the way, I get a little PO'd because I have, for example, a beautiful granddaughter and a grandson that I care a great deal about, and that I love, not care a great deal about, I love. And I worry for their safety in this environment. If you were allowing these criminals to walk the street wherever they want to walk the street, you got a problem in your society.
Yeah. And going back to this guy being a member of that gang, gangs have an initiation, and that initiation calls for you to do something very evil, very violent. So right away, the guy, just by saying, yeah, I'm a member of that gang, you just admitted that you joined the gang, you did the blood initiation. You need to be behind bars because you have no moral compass. That gang is your heart, blood, and life.
And Bill,
do the time.
Bill,
go away.
The guy's an illegal.
Yes.
So right off the bat, and people make light of this, okay? The left particularly, but they make light of the fact that, well, he's just an illegal. No. To get into this country the way they did, they broke our laws, okay? Now, if you're a country with no laws, you ain't a country, you know? Anyway, here's Caroline Levitt talking about that announcement. This is Caroline Levitt speaking for the administration with regard to that Fox News alert that we just aired a second ago.
First of all, the error that you are referring to was a clerical error. It was an administrative error. The administration maintains the position that this individual who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang. That is fact number one. Fact number two, we also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number three, this individual was a member, actually a leader of the brutal MS-13 gang, which this president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Fact number four is that foreign terrorists do not have legal protections in the United States of America anymore, and it is within the president's executive authority and power to deport these heinous individuals from American communities. It is a promise he campaigned on. It is a promise he is keeping, and every single person in this room should be grateful for that, considering especially MS-13 is very prevalent and prominent here in the District of Columbia, in Maryland, and in Virginia, and the president, the attorney general, everyone who has been involved in these operations is focused on eradicating these criminals and terrorists from our communities.
Now, it may sound like she was just winging that off the top of her head.
No.
But that's all stuff that she's talked to the president about and his people. That's their stance on this situation. And what you said, Bill, nobody, by the way, in all of the discussion that I've heard about this situation, nobody has ever brought up what you said about the initiation to this organization. And I've heard that before. Yeah. I've heard that you have to do some pretty vile, if not criminal things to get into this organization.
And he's the head of the gang? Come on now. Wake up, open your eyes, get the sleep out of it, and take a good damn look at it. And these judges, they come in and do these rulings thinking that they're gods in robes. Let me tell you something. And this is the reason that you have the attack from the left on the president of the United States. And, well, we got to rein back his powers. You see, the one thing is, these judges, they're just line judges. They have districts. They might call a foul in the game or something like that, and that's pretty much the end of what they can do. It is the president, the presidential office, and the commander-in-chief that has the ultimate power, and that's why they want to take it away, and these Democrats want to get in and do it. Now, it'll change if they sit there and have power, but, go back, and it's a short read. And I don't like doing long reads. Anybody that knows me knows that. Constitution's a short read. Read the damn thing. Well, and you'll find out that these judges have got nothing. They're clowns in robes right now is what they are.
It should be a requirement of every representative and senator who gets lucky enough to be elected to the position that in order for them to be sworn in, they have to spend a 2-week course reading and thinking about the Constitution of the United States of America. I think they should have to read it. You said it's a short read. You can read it in a day or less.
Less.
But when I say read it in a day, I mean read it and think about it. I don't mean just skim through it and read it like it's a piece of copy. It is something to be thought about. It was such an interesting document because they took their time at every step to think of all of the possibilities. By the way, when they were writing the Constitution, they feared what's happening right now with the judiciary. They actually anticipated that a rogue judiciary could muck up the details, and they're doing that right now. And they didn't really have an answer. I think they relied then on the honesty and integrity of the Supreme Court, which may be their mistake, because right now, when you have guys like Roberts in there, it hasn't got a lot of honesty and integrity. Oh, he may look like a news anchor and have a handsome, good looks, but this guy is corrupt. Bill, I just want to say this. A lot of people don't realize this, but there's a fear. They believe there's a fear on his part that he's up against the wall, that everything is about to come down on Roberts because he's not what he presents himself to be. He, like we said yesterday, he parties in D.C. with guys like Boasberg, he shouldn't be doing that. He's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Right. He shouldn't be going out drinking with his buddies in lower courts when their stuff is going to come up and see him, And also, we talked about this for a little bit yesterday, but there is a serious question as to whether John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, may have actually visited Epstein Island. And they're trying not to, they're dancing around that right now. And I think this is why they haven't released the information on who went to Epstein Island, because there are people like Roberts who may be in that book.
Trump is winning. Jobs are coming back. He's put the tariffs in place. And, there's going to be some peel-back pain on this, but you've got to do it because it puts the middle class, the working man, back on the forefront. And I think most of the people that I've heard from and seen news footage on, they get it. They go, I got to suffer a little bit, but it can't be any worse than what we've already taken, and our jobs have gone away. We can start making things and producing again. So it's a good thing. So you got that going on. Trump is delivering on everything. The JFK files are out. The Epstein files, they're kind of out. He's trying to get them out.
They're not out.
They're kind. That's why I said kind of. They're not all out, but I'm just saying. But there's blowback on a lot of this stuff because the left, if it all gets out there,
the Epstein files haven't been released. There's nothing out there from Epstein, zero. So they're talking about it. They say they're going to do it. They say any day now, but we haven't seen it. You said something before the show started about a badger in a corner. This is a badger in a corner that it's trapped. It's going to scream, hiss, fight, bite, claw at you with whatever it can. And that's the Democrat Party. They are at the lowest of the low, lower than they were when the election happened, if you can imagine that. But they're screaming, kicking, and they're doing everything is vile Trump. He bad man. Well, the simple fact is he's delivering and doing everything he promised. Yes.
The job report today, 228,000.
Yes. But what you just said is the absolute truth. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody what he's doing right now. Nothing should surprise you because he said during his rallies and when he was campaigning, this is what I'm going to do when I'm president. Well, he's president, and he's doing all the things that he promised he'd do. And the media, maybe it's because the damn media bill didn't cover him like they should have during his presidency. They kind of turned him off. So they wanted to diminish him, so they didn't cover him. And so now they're even surprised at what he's doing because they weren't at the rallies they should have been at,
It's all been telegraphed. It's been telegraphed for 4 damn years what he was going to do. And you're surprised now? Well, that's because the media didn't say anything. people that voted for him knew exactly what he was going to do. And this story about the guy with the M13 gang. I'm sitting there going, there's no reason for a judge to sit there and say, "You bring him back." Really?
They do it. They do it to muck up the waters. They do it to run interference, to slow down the progress of this administration. If they can get every damn liberal, by the way, they don't go. These people who seek out these district judges, they'll never go to a conservative district. They won't go to a Republican district judge and ask him to do something that interferes with the administration. They always go to the blue states, and the liberal judges, and those are the ones that they can count on. They will put there. I really believe that they were like ticking time bombs. They would just put there, do your job, and someday we'll come back and we'll need your help. And now they're going back because they need their help. And they're doing what they were supposed to do. They're messing up the progress of this administration. A federal judge said Thursday, this is in Providence, I believe, she will grant a temporary restraining order requested by Attorney General and governors in 24 states, all of them, for the most part, are blue states, that will keep in place for now the nearly $11 billion in public health grants, including $31 million for Rhode Island that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services canceled last week. Mind you, the president has the right to do this, but the mere fact that she can cause interference, that she can stop this, is a fault in our system. It's a defect in our government. All these they've got to resolve these district justices, because what the left doesn't realize is two sides can play this game. We've never done this before, but when somebody like, let's say, Obama were to get in, or somebody like Obama gets into office again, well, what's to stop the right from doing exactly what the left is doing to Trump? Now you have a government that's in stalemate all the time. They're so short-sighted on the left right now. They think, isn't it great? Our district judges are stopping all this stuff. Well, it's great until you get somebody in power, if you ever do again. And in order for that to happen, you got to change a lot of your leaders and get your act together. And you only got 3 years to do that. But anyway, this is another judge out of the clear blue sky in Providence, Rhode Island, making waves.
Well, they go Article 3, but, there's supposed to be checks and balances. But you're right. Maybe it's not quite all well defined. And so they're jumping over their jurisdictional boundaries and they're making rulings beyond what their charter calls for. The only person that really has the say in that is the president of the United States, hence the attack on him. And, the Democrats go, well, we got to remove some of his power because he's not letting us get away with what we want to do. It's terrible.
Yeah. It's interesting. This week, Cory Booker, you probably heard about this. He decided that he's a senator from New Jersey, for those of you who aren't paying attention. He decided that he was going to make a stance. So he decided that he was going to not filibuster. It wasn't a filibuster, although it kind of looked like it. He got on the floor of the Senate, and he decided to set a record for constant discussion. So he talked for, I think it was 25 hours, and
so what?
And nobody paid attention. I mean, even the Democrats who were watching the football game or whatever, the baseball games, they weren't paying attention to Cory Booker on C-SPAN, except for maybe a handful of people like Frank Luntz. Frank Luntz is, quote, a conservative Republican pollster. No, flag on the play. He's the roommate of the former Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. They lived in they shared a condo together in D.C. He's a phony too. All right, he loves to pretend that he's one thing and actually be another. Here's what he said about what Cory Booker did over this past week.
But are they energized in running in a circle and fighting with each other, or are they energized in a direction?
They're going crazy right now. And they're going crazy because they don't see leadership in their own party. And I want to emphasize, what Cory Booker did over the last 24 hours may have changed the course of political history. I watched a lot of it. I listened to words. I listened to phrases, how he presents himself. Did he criticize Donald Trump? Of course he did. But he struck the kind of tone that grassroots Democrats are looking for. He gave them a reason to fight. He gave them a reason to stand up and say, this is my country too. Of course, every Republican watching will say, this is nonsense. But he's not speaking just to Republicans. He's speaking to Americans. And what I saw over the last 25 hours absolutely blew me away. And just as you sometimes make projections or predictions, I'm going to do one right here. That speech puts Cory Booker as one of the leaders for the Democratic Party. 2028, and I'll go even further. If you ask Democratic senators right now, would they rather have lead them over the next 3 years? They would choose Cory Booker over Chuck Schumer.
Frank Luntz is an idiot, but he's also an operative. All right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but that gets trumped by the fact that AOC wins in that thing. It shows you that the Democrats have no clue what they want for a leader. And these, I can't think of anything that would be proper to say I can put on the podcast. But these scum people are sitting there supposedly floating to the top as possible leaders. I mean, they're sinking to the far, far left. AOC, Cory Booker, and they're all grandstanding. And then you got, like we talked about earlier, Gavin Newsom, they're all grandstanding, showboating to try to get their name out there because they want to be the leader in charge and maybe in 2028 run for the president.
You have a situation where a guy gets up and speaks gibberish for 25 hours. Nobody pays attention. And then this fathead, Frank Luntz, who, by the way, is not a fan of Trump, has never been a fan of Trump. Mm-hmm. He may go on Fox every so often with his flash polls and stuff like that. And remember another thing. Fox really isn't a fan of Trump either, all right? They may present themselves to be a fan because it's commercially proper for them to do so because they make a lot of money by creating this false narrative. But they're at the higher levels of Fox, they can't stand Trump. If they had their druthers, they would pull the plug on this whole conservative network thing and move to the center or the left.
The people that inherited all the Murdoch money and they're running it now, they're lefties. And they have to hang their heads low at the social parties they go to because, yes, we talk Trump. Yeah. Yes. Well, you know what? And see, that gets back to that.
What network do you run?
Fox.
I run Fox. Oh, my goodness. How can you stand yourself?
Again, that gets to that elite crowd, that elite money crowd, and it's a very small, minuscule part of the world, but they are the money mongers of the world, and they're taking everything away. China is sitting there with their 34% tariff. They produce junk, and China needs to, be pounded back to the molehill they crawled out of.
When you hear them talking about how bad the administration is and how evil Elon Musk is, I want you to ask yourself, where were the people on the left when we were being overrun by massive hordes of strangers, human traffickers, drug dealers, and the like coming into our country and disappearing into the fabric of our country, never to be seen from again? They're out there now. They could be down the street. They could be down the street from your house, thanks to this administration. The other day, a young man was, I believe he was a football player, 17 years old. He was at a sporting event, and some kid was from the opposing team, and the kid was on the wrong side of the field. So the 17-year-old got him and said, "Hey, buddy, you with the other team? You're supposed to be on the other side." No, I mean, that's where all the other guys are. That's where your guys are.
Yeah.
He was stabbed to death. The kid on the opposing team pulled out a knife and killed the 17-year-old with a future. And I believe, I could be wrong, I believe that he came from illegals. They try not to tell you about this in the news media. Have you noticed that? If there's a massive car accident on the highway, they'll say a Boston man. They'll make it sound like whoever caused the problem is a native of Boston, when the reality is he's a native of Honduras or someplace, and he only lived in Boston for the last 6 months because he snuck in.
Yeah. They try to qualify them. You know, we've shut down the influx of illegals at the border, and they're deporting, but they haven't deported enough yet. Do you know there's still 1.3 million illegals that are accessing Medicaid?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they do it, by the way, Bill, those same people, they also voted. Yeah, they voted.
Yeah, they're voting too. So there's a lot of work to be done. And these people were all brought in beholding to one party that got them here. And this was a plan that had been in place. And this is not Bill Knight saying this. This comes from the news that the Democrats said they're going to bring in these people. They'll put them on Medicaid. They'll get them their Social Security and their voting rights. In the process, they're going to vote Democrat, and they're going to redistrict to where it's a one-party nation. Trump upset that apple cart, foiled that plan.
Can you imagine how many votes Trump would have won by if they didn't cheat?
Right, yeah. But, the plan was they wanted to make it, you either switch over and be a Democrat, you're one-party system, or you're in violation of law and you're arrested.
Well,
and that is a fact.
What did Hillary say? Hillary said a year or two ago, she said that we would have to be re-educated.
Yeah, got to re-educate the right because they're not left thinking.
Yeah.
Come on, Hillary.
If she had her druthers and people like her, the Chuck Schumers of the world, by the way, these people, they have no values. They have no principles because they vacillate. They go with the flow. Whatever they think is politically advantageous at the time, that's their position. Like we said at the start of the show, a lot of these people were at one time pro-borders, pro-security, pro all the things that we talk about, right? Tariffs, they like tariffs. All of a sudden, they figured, hey, we can get more votes and more people on our side if we switch. And they pretend when they make the switch, they pretend, or otherwise known as lie, that it has always been their position. But they forget we have videotape and audio tape. We can hear them say these things. But they don't. They're so blatant about it, they don't give a damn. They just keep saying it. It goes back to what is Goebbels, when he said, you say a lie long enough and loud enough, and before you know it, it becomes the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, you just say it over and over and over again, fiction becomes reality, and that's his point, and that's what's going on. They keep telling the lie over and over and over again, but I think there's enough people out there now, Trump supporters, that they know what the truth really is. We can't get ourselves from the mainstream news.
One more story I wanted to bring up. Did you hear about how the Ukrainians are resupplying their troops on the border?
No, go ahead. No.
What they're doing is, in order to get wounded troops to heal faster, they're giving them ketamine or ketamine.
Ketamine?
Yeah.
Ketamine.
Yeah. They're giving them this drug, which really doesn't make them heal faster. They just don't really give a damn about the wound anymore.
So it's kind of like a morphine or, it's something like that. Or what is that other one that's out there, too, that we talked about? Fentanyl.
It says the illegal...
Put you in La La Land.
The illegal party drug, animal tranquilizer, and battlefield anesthetic is being used to bring Ukraine's living dead back to real life. Pioneering ketamine therapy offers hope of a fast-track cure for post-traumatic stress disorder in a nation grappling with widespread trauma. So apparently after you've been blown up, you have some psychological issues, like you don't want to get in that damn tank again or something, So you give them some ketamine, and they're just ready to get in that thing and go for a ride.
They're a walking, bleeding, happy zombie. So, and they go, you know what? They're going to have I don't know how many soldiers that are getting this, but they're going to have a population of drug addicts thanks to this war and thanks to the Ukraine's brilliant.
Well, what they're doing, they're finding out they send them back out there, and the poor guys get killed anyway. So, anyway, my dear friend, I think we should point out at this part of our program that we are sponsored by a delicious beverage known as Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's a delicious blend of all of your favorite coffee beans put into one fine package. It's the perfect way to start your morning. I mean, you can have other coffee, sure, but they're not like Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. This is special. I mean, we spent... Juan Valdez, you've heard about Juan Valdez, the famous coffee grower and coffee picker, Yeah. Well, we send his whole family out to pick our coffee beans. They're all there. And they're picking,
happy. They're happy to do it.
They are. They're very happy because they know it's for a good cause. Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. So you got to try it. You're saying, well, I would try it, Jim, if you just told me where I could get the darn stuff. You can buy it at rightsideshop.com. rightsideshop.com, or go to our website, which is it'sanotherday.com, and there's a button that my friend across the table here has conveniently placed on our front page, so all you have to do is just go to it'sanotherday.com and press that button, and you're right there.
Takes you there. So, yeah, that look, you're going to get the pickled finger of the left all weekend long in the news and everything, so just ignore it, because that's all you're going to get is left news.
And you need a cup of coffee to get yourself through it, actually.
Yeah, you really do. Right Side Coffee will, and a little bourbon in it, too, and you'll forget about everything.
That's true. We don't make any Right Side bourbon, but...
No, we should, though.
You'll have to get that on your own. But we do have Juan Jose and the Border Crossers here to sing our jingle.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Oh, yes. Right Side Coffee. You got to try it. It's really good, and it's only available at rightsideshops.com. So, I guess that's about it. Our weekend update. We always say we'll keep it about a half an hour, and we always break it. Yeah. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself. I know you're out and about, and hopefully we don't have any problems with demonstrations and things go smoothly. But I got a bad feeling about this, Bill, today.
Yeah.
I almost forgot one of our most important stories, and this is true. They announced, I heard it this morning, they arrested a guy who threatened the life of President Trump, a Florida guy. He threatened the life of President Trump. I think the guy must have been drinking heavily because he apparently he wrote it down. I don't know, he either sent him letters or sent him emails, but they were able to trace him, and they got him. They arrested him. But that gives you an idea. There are some very confused people out there, and some, by the way, who aren't confused, who are absolutely deliberate. I still would like to know all of the honest details about what happened in Butler, PA, last July 13th. We've got nothing. Zero.
Yeah, I'd like to know, too, but we don't. And yeah, I think someday we'll know, but until then...
60 years, just like the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll be an old man then, but I'll be glad I'm around to get it. So until we meet again on Monday...
Yes.
Have fun, have a great weekend, ignore the news, because it's only going to be weird.
You need one day to breathe, don't you?
Yeah, you really got to go out and breathe in some fresh air, go out and do something fun and good, and forget about the world for one day.
Right.
So until then, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.